Today, the Supreme Court has struck down an extremely restrictive abortion law. Now, this 5-4 decision, in which Chief Justice John Roberts joined with the court's 4 liberals, struck down a law passed by Louisiana. So now this was a 2014 law. And what it did is that it required any doctor offering abortion services to have admitting privileges at a hospital within 30 miles. So now this, of course, made its way through the court, through all the lower courts, and then ended up at the Supreme Court, to which they say, well, sorry, but, we have precedent here, and we've already struck down a similar law in Texas, and so we cannot let the Louisiana law stand. And so that's interesting. Now, as for the substance of the law, of course, look, it required clinics to get admitting privileges, which, of course, is an onerous and unnecessary burden put on people who are seeking an abortion. In fact, 2 Louisiana doctors in a medical clinic sued to get the law overturned. They said it would leave only 1 doctor at a single clinic to provide services for nearly 10,000 women who seek abortions in the state each year. And these same challengers pointed to the Texas law that the Supreme Court struck down in 2016. That was, of course, the vote of then Justice Anthony Kennedy, who ruled that Texas had imposed an obstacle on women seeking access to abortion without providing any sort of medical benefit. Why? It's because to need admitting privileges, generally women who get abortions don't run into that kind of complication where they have to go to the hospital with admitting privileges. And so what they're doing is that they're basically just putting in a burden for people to make it so that women have a harder time accessing abortion rights. So Stephen Breyer, who wrote the Texas decision, also wrote Monday's ruling and said the law poses a substantial obstacle to women seeking abortion, offers no health benefits, and therefore imposes an undue burden on the constitutional right to choose to have an abortion. Roberts said even though the court was wrong to strike down the Texas law, but said he voted with the majority because that was the precedent. So understand that had they not ruled that way in 2016, it's very, very possible that we would have had a much different ruling today and that Louisiana would also have been upheld. And so, thank goodness for Stephen Breyer at that point, right? So now, Louisiana law, they pointed out, imposes a burden on access to abortion just as severe as opposed by Texas, and therefore, Louisiana's law cannot stand under our precedents, writes Roberts. And it actually would have been more restrictive than the Texas one, actually, because about half of the state's abortion clinics were forced to close. It also said the law was unnecessary because only a small fraction of women experience medical problems after an abortion, and when they do, they normally seek a treatment at a hospital near where they live, not one near the clinic. So now the Trump White House weighed in on this and said, quote, in an unfortunate ruling today, the Supreme Court devalued both the health of mothers and the lives of unborn children by gutting Louisiana's policy that all required abortion services be performed by individuals with admitting privileges at a nearby hospital. States have legitimate interests in regulating any medical procedure, including abortions, to protect patient safety. So that's bullshit. Okay. This is not about protecting patients. It's about stopping women from having abortions. They want to make it harder for these clinics to operate. And so what they're doing is that they say that they're against regulation, right? And over-regulation specifically. But they've been using over-regulation for a very long time to target abortion clinics. Oh, you got to get admitting privileges. They've even changed like the layout and the rules for the layouts of these hospitals or of these clinics, right? To where, oh, yeah, you have the wrong kind of door frame. You got to shut down before you fix it. So you got to fix it first, right? And then you can open back up until we find, of course, something else to hit you on. Just all these simple over-regulations to try to shut down access to abortion. They're trying to regulate it to death. And so, of course, it's absolute hypocrisy. Complications, like I said, are incredibly rare, but it's not about that. It's not even about being pro-life. It's about being pro-birth. And that's it. I mean, if you really want to stop people from getting abortions, you make contraception widely and freely available. And you do comprehensive sexual education. This is not complicated. It works. Studies have shown that it works. And as a result, we've actually seen less teen pregnancy, unwanted pregnancies. And therefore, we've seen less abortions. It works. It works. Why don't we do that? Again, if you're really concerned, then you should stop abortion at its source and prevent people from getting pregnant with unwanted children as much as you can. You can never really get rid of that, obviously. But there are ways that you can reduce those numbers and therefore reduce abortions. And if you're part of the pro-life movement, isn't that your number one issue? Well, then why aren't you doing it? Well, I think we all know the answer to that. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.